it's been quite some time since I've done a video about saving money, frugal living, and all that kind of stuff. Everything's just been very investment focused lately. So I wanted to do a video talking about sort of the top frugal living tips that you can follow to save more money, and whether it's to help you get out of debt or to help you get some money to invest and reach your goals. Whatever the reason, I think most of us could adopt one or two frugal living tips and just get more for our money. So I'm going to take you through 32 frugal living tips that you can adopt today, and I've sorted them into 3 categories. So we're going to go through just general life frugal living tips, and then food frugal living tips, and then financial frugal living tips. So without further ado, we have a lot to get through, so let's jump straight in. So the first category is life. So tip number 1 is to use bar soap instead of liquid soap and liquid shower gels. It takes a lot of getting used to, but it goes so much further than liquid soap and liquid shower gel. I've been testing this out personally in my life recently, and I still have liquid sort of antibacterial soap for, you know, when I go outside, etc., with everything that's going on. Although I did read a lot of studies that basically said that actually there's no difference in how well it gets rid of germs, etc., whether it's antibac or not. But you know, when I'm just pottering around the house and I want to wash my hands after washing the dishes or cleaning or something like that, and when I'm having a shower, a bar soap does just fine, and it lasts so long. So give it a go and you will save so much money on shower gels. Tip number 2 is sort of similar, but it's to use cleaning rags instead of paper towels. Now, I still have paper towels and I still use them for certain things, but the majority of cleaning can actually be done with rags. So things like dusting or just cleaning the kitchen counters, anything like that can be done with reusable things, and you will save money on paper towels because, let's face it, they are not cheap. Tip number 3 is to become more minimalist. Now, I have a whole video about this if you want to check it out, but essentially, firstly, getting rid of stuff that you own so you can make money by selling stuff, and it will help you clear your mind. But also a big sort of concept of minimalism is just questioning everything. Do you really need this item? And through that, like, I'm by no means a proper minimalist in terms of, you know, I think a lot of people think about minimalism from the sense of I own hardly anything. But for me now, when I'm buying stuff, I literally wait for a while. I think about it, I consider whether I need it, etc. And it's really helped sort of having that mindset to not spend as much money. Tip number 4 is to use cashback sites every time you shop online. Now, I've only just recently gotten into this, and I've already made quite a bit of money literally just from clicking through. And I will leave the link down below if you want to check out the cashback site that I use. But I just couldn't believe that I've not been doing this for the last few years. I knew about the cashback sites, but I always thought it was a bit more faff and that the places I shopped at weren't really there. But now I'm trying to make a habit out of it for literally whenever I need something that I'm buying online, I go through the cashback site. You'll be surprised how quickly it adds up. Tip number 5 is to have a capsule wardrobe. So I've still not got around to doing this because I'm trying not to buy new clothes, and I haven't really bought many new clothes recently. I've got a few dresses because, you know, everyone's gained some weight in lockdown, right? So I bought some dresses and they are fully black, but essentially a capsule wardrobe means that everything you buy matches other things in your wardrobe, and I really want to go for that and have more just neutral tone clothes, and essentially just black, white, grey, and then very neutral toned colours, just to make sure you can mix and match, and it means that your clothes will go a long way. Tip number 6 is around your TV license and streaming services. So I've mentioned this before, but unless you watch live TV or BBC iPlayer on demand, you do not need a TV license. So for me, I don't have a TV license because I never ever ever watch live TV, and I never watch BBC iPlayer because I'm not going to pay, I think it's 160 something pounds for the year just to watch BBC iPlayer. So in order to make that happen, because there was some confusion last time I mentioned this, the best thing to do is actually disconnect your TV from the aerial, because for me it's easy because I live in a new build flat, so I was never connected in the first place. But if you're getting rid of a TV license, you have to notify them that you're no longer going to be using the live streaming, etc, etc. And then if they did come for an inspection, it will be really hard to prove if you are connected to the aerial. So the best thing to do is just disconnect it completely. Like I don't even have the wires that connect into it, even though the likelihood of them checking up on me is very low. So as long as you do that, then you don't need to worry. But make sure that you do notify them if it is a change in circumstance. And the other sort of offshoot of that is streaming services. So for me, I basically rotate between Netflix and Amazon Video. I don't pay for multiple streaming services at a time because it's rare that I'm gonna watch multiple services at a time. If I get into a TV series, I'm gonna watch that TV series before I watch something else. So I will do Netflix for a few months and then Amazon Video for a few months, etc. So essentially my TV cost is my broadband cost, which is very low, and either the £6 or whatever Netflix is, or the £7 or something that Amazon is. So very, very low. Tip number 7 is to unsubscribe from emails. Now, this might seem like a weird one, but you can't get tempted if they can't send you emails with sales or offers or just new things they have in stock, because you might see that email and think, oh, this is really cool, I really want this. But had you not seen that email, you wouldn't. So unsubscribing from store emails, etc., is one of the best things you can do if you get tempted through online shopping and buying things through emails. Tip number 8 is to stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy, and you do not need the latest phone just because someone you know has the latest phone. You do not need designer handbags just because someone you know has designer handbags, etc, etc. If you're happy with what you have, stop comparing yourself and trying to keep up with the Joneses and think that someone's worth is better than yours because they have material possessions. You have goals and you want to achieve those goals, so just hold on to that. Now that leads so nicely into the next one, and that is keep reminders of why you're doing this everywhere. And I've gone into one of my videos previously about how to keep up with your financial goals, but setting phone backgrounds, laptop backgrounds, post-its around your house, whatever you need to do, don't let other people sway you into making the wrong decisions. Remember why you're doing what you're doing. Is it to get out of debt? Is it to become financially free? Is it to save for whatever it is you want to save for? Just keep those reminders and stick to that purpose and that goal. Tip number 10 is to think about items and their price in terms of time. So how much do you make per hour? And if you're on a salary, work it out. And then think about how many hours you have to work to afford whatever it is you want to buy. And this little trick has been a godsend, because, you know, that pair of jeans might be £50, but to someone who doesn't earn a lot per hour, that's like a lot of hours of work, especially if you factor in tax. If you get into the habit of thinking in that way, you will realize fairly quickly how much less you are buying. Frugal tip number 11 is make your coffee at home. And I preach about this all the time, but having your own coffee machine, or even if it's just ground coffee and a very cheap milk frother, I think I got mine from Lidl for like £20 ages ago. but you can get them on Amazon and wherever else. Just having that and a coffee cup will save you so much money in the long term. And the likelihood is when you go to places like Starbucks, quite often you'll be swayed to not just buy the coffee, but also buy a pastry or a chocolate or something else. And I know that I often found myself, you know, when I was going to Starbucks or Cafe Nero or whatever it was, going, oh, that pastry looks good, I'll have that too, or something like that. And you avoid all of that just by making your own coffee. Okay, time to move on to the food category. So these are the frugal living tips, all related to food budgets. The first one should be a no-brainer, but don't go shopping when you're hungry. I cannot tell you how many times I've done this, and I still do this, even though I know I shouldn't, but sometimes I have to. And when you go to the shops hungry, you buy a lot more than you need, and then you waste food and waste money, etc., etc. So one of the best things you can do is just to go food shopping after you've eaten and you literally have no hunger whatsoever. Because when I do that, I find myself steering away from things like crisps and chocolates and whatever else you might want, and generally junk food, because when you're hungry, you're like, oh, I'm gonna have that bread and I'm gonna have that pack of crisps and I'm gonna have this and that, and you spend a lot more than you should. Secondly, make a point, if you are able to shop in cheaper stores. Now, I've mentioned this before, but shopping in places like Aldi or Lidl is so much cheaper, especially when you go for own brand items. And that is the third tip on this list, is to go for generic brands or the store own brands, because they are so much cheaper, and more often than not, they are the same product on the inside. I literally know people who have worked in food packaging, and they have told me that they package up the same stuff for both things like, I don't remember the brands now, so I'm just making this up, but like Waitrose versus Lidl. That is like, don't take that as what like I said, those stores are completely made up, but I'm trying to make a point. The actual packaging is what you're paying for. So it's worth checking the back or doing a blind taste test to see if you can tell the difference between the products. And what I've actually found in certain foods is that the supermarket own brand is healthier. Now, the reason for that is because they tend not to put as much sugar. So sugar tends to make things taste better, right? But sugar is also really bad for you. So look at the ingredients, compare whether there's a huge difference. Now, I've noticed this a lot in medicines, so that's going to be like an offshoot of this tip, is with generic brands and the expensive brands, when you look at the ingredients, they are exactly the same. And you'll have like paracetamol, which is 20p, and some expensive form of painkiller that is like £3, and you literally look at the ingredients and it's exactly the same makeup. So really try to think about what you're buying. Tip number 4 is to use what you already have. So quite often we go shopping and buy things we already have, or just buy things that we don't need because we could have made something from what we have at home. So I again made a video talking about sort of making an inventory of the food that you have. But if you don't want to keep an inventory, a way of getting around this is just before you meal plan or go shopping, just really have a look and see, okay, I've got this, this and this, and if I buy this, I could make this other meal. And that will just help you reduce the cost of that food shop. Now, the 5th tip here is, if you can, try to grow some of your own food or herbs. So I've often had things like watercress or mint or all of these other little things, because they can really help you get the greens that you need in your diet without constantly having to pay for it. And there are so many videos out there about growing your own foods, and if you've got gardens, etc., then you've got all of that space to use, and it would be a shame really not to utilize it to save some money. Number 6, get used to drinking filtered water. I rarely drink anything else, and I have a filter, I just drink water from that. I never buy bottled, it's better for the environment and for your wallet. And other drinks just have so much sugar, which is bad for you and makes you want to eat more. So it takes a while getting used to, but for me now, when I drink things that aren't water, I feel very strange. So making that switch can save you a ton of money. Number 7 is set a food budget per week and stick to it. So whatever your monthly budget is, divide it by the amount of weeks in that month and stick to it. It makes it easier to stick to your overall monthly budget, because if you look at the total you have for the month, you're far more likely to overspend initially and then not have enough to cover the food in the last week or so, and therefore overspend. And I did this for the longest time until I started looking at a weekly budget. Now, the 8th one here is twofold again. So firstly, meal prep. And again, I've talked about this a lot, but meal prepping can save you so much money. It saves you from not having food and ordering a takeaway or buying food that you then waste. And the offshoot of that is when you do cook something, freeze one portion. So whilst batch cooking is also an option, and if you have the time and the ability to do it, great. I don't really like batch cooking, but what I will do is, if I make, for example, a chickpea curry, it usually makes about 3 portions. So what I will do is I will have 1 portion on that day, 1 portion on the next day, and then I will freeze the 3rd portion, because I don't want to eat the same thing 3 days in a row. And actually freezing that 3rd portion means that for the days that I know I'm going to be super busy, I mean, I'm always really busy, but extra busy, I can literally just take it out of the freezer and have that instead of cooking or instead of ordering a takeaway. Number 9 is to look at expiration dates before you buy stuff. So I often, when I'm in the supermarket, I will get stuff from the back because it will have a longer expiration date. So if you have a longer expiration date, it's less likely to go bad and therefore you throw it away. Making sure that everything has the longest expiration you can hope for just minimizes that risk of food waste. Now, talking of food waste, the next tip here is to look at the zero waste movement. There are tons of resources out there for how to minimize waste, and within that, food waste. So I've been trying to learn more and more about this, but you know, from things like freezing bananas that are very ripe, make sure you chop them up. Peel them and chop them up before you freeze them. But freezing bananas, berries, you know, freezing all of that for smoothies or things like, you know, lemons. I wasted a lot of lemons, but you can freeze lemon slices, etc., to then put into drinks, for example. And there is just so many things that just blow my mind. So looking into that will help you cut down on the food waste. Number 11 on the food list is go meat-free. And I've been vegetarian for about 7 years, and you know, you don't have to go fully veggie, but the more meals you substitute for vegetarian meals, the more you're going to be able to save money, because let's face it, meat is expensive and it's better for the planet and the animals. Number 12 is stockpile when things are on sale. Now, be reasonable, you don't want to waste food, but if you know you use things often and they happen to be on sale, why not buy an extra 1 or 2, expiration dates permitting, of course. But try to buy an extra 1 or 2 and then you're saving money in the long term. Number 13 is don't store things next to things like bananas or avocados. So they actually release gases that make other things ripen quicker. So I've often found when I store them together, so you know, your apples next to your bananas, for example, the apples go bad quicker and therefore you have more food waste. So definitely don't store them together. Number 14 is to use receipt scanning apps. I've mentioned these before, but they are a really good habit to get into because it costs you nothing. It takes a second of your time when you get home, and you build up points that you can then switch to money. So I've made a little bit of money through doing that. So I thoroughly recommend, the one that I use the most is Shopix, and I think it's a great way for some extra income. Number 15 on this list is to check the amounts per 100 grams or whatever it says, because quite often there is a huge price difference. Now obviously if it's just a small thing where it's cheaper to buy the thing that's more expensive per 100 grams or per kilogram, and you know you're not going to use the rest, go for that one. It's not a black and white situation. But actually with many things, it's really good to check the price per whatever, if it's a small item per 100 grams, if it's a big one per kilo, whatever it is. So just be a little bit more savvy, and again, over time and over more shops, it will add up. Number 16 on the food list is don't buy pre-chopped foods. And I know that it's really hard not to, especially when you're really busy, but those tend to have a huge markup on them. So it is so much better just to buy the whole thing and chop it up yourself. So the final category is finances, and I've got 4 tips for you here and then we'll be done. So let's kick it off. The first tip here is to check all of your bills and invoices and receipts. It is crazy how many mistakes are actually made, and there have been some times where I've picked out that something was incorrect and managed to get my money back. So don't just mindlessly pay things, always double check. Secondly, don't allow lifestyle inflation. If you get promotions, anything like that, just put all of that money straight into a savings account or an investment account, etc. You're already used to living at a certain level, so why would you allow that level to creep up when you can actually just be frugal and save all that extra money? Now that kind of leads into the third tip here, which is that all unexpected money, so things like birthdays or refunds, tax refunds, anything that you really weren't expecting that is a one-off sum, the majority, if not all of it, should go into your savings or investments. And the final tip here on the finance side is to keep monthly track of your budgets, your income, your expenses, etc. Having a budget will be the best thing you can do, because it will help you realize how much you're spending and hopefully reining it in and figuring out how you can be more frugal. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.